Of our three panelists that are supposed to be on the next session here. So we're gonna get going. Our next discussion is focused on one of the most critical aspects of any grocery enterprise, which is the supply chain. With me to explore how AI continues to shape the modern supply chain are Alonso and Matt, and soon to be Jan. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Why don't each of you just take a second to introduce yourselves to the audience? Alonso, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, everybody. I'm Alonso Vargas. I'm the SVP of product for Flybuy. And yeah, I've got a lot of experience in mobile app space for various, grocery, retail, hospitality industries, and then deep operational, intelligence as well as location intelligence expertise through the Flybuy product.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Matt Van Gilder. I'm the Director of E-commerce and Digital Experience at SpartanNash. I'm actually celebrating my 15th year here this week. And prior to working at SpartanNash, I was still in the grocery business. I worked at one of our independent customers, actually bagging groceries. So I started off bagging groceries and I've worked in many different areas of the company along the way, from store operations to many desks in marketing. And today, my team and I are responsible for really just taking what the store experience is at our retail stores and bringing it to life digitally. So think mobile apps, websites, e-commerce, whether it's first party or marketplace, just the different ways in which customers can get their groceries from us digitally. So I'm excited to talk about AI today because there's a lot of opportunity in that space.
Well, thanks, Matt, and congratulations on your anniversary. And Jan, you joined us just in time to introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Jan. I'm CEO of Brightpeak. Originally more like engineer/scientist, but now leading, 200 great people. And our mission is really to create the most efficient and fully automated fulfillment, actually primarily focused on grocery. And we created the very first mobile autonomous picker. And today, work with all the big grocers on the planet.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. I want to remind everyone to send in your questions and comments. The last session was great. We had a lot of questions from the audience, and we really appreciate those. So send them in as you can. Obviously, the supply chain is one of grocery functions that has benefited the most from the growing power of AI, the ability to synchronize and optimize the sophisticated dance that is the modern grocery supply chain via AI and ML has been a godsend, for grocery operations. So Alonso, just to kind of get the conversation going, in our annual AI and grocery study, the supply chain once again ranked as the area with the greatest AI opportunity, with 87% of grocers saying that it will continue to be a high impact on the supply chain. Where is AI being successfully leveraged in the supply chain today, and what are some of the benefits that grocers are enjoying?
Yeah, right on. So, I think that the important thing is to kind of level set a little bit and just talk about the supply chain and what that means. I think, and oftentimes we have a tendency to think about manufacturing to inventory. However, I think that there's this increasing trend to also, think about how we're getting the product into the consumer's hands. This is super important. 78% of shoppers say that poor digital experience reduces their loyalty, according to the AI and grocery report. So this is something that you're going to hear over and over again, right across various industries. And so you've got various issues like system fragmentation, high cognitive load on the staff, lack of communication between systems, and ultimately under-leveraged data for predictive decisions, right? So at Flybuy, we're providing a lot of location information in order to help make better decision making. So basically what it comes down to is companies are looking at these complexities of the supply chain and trying to maximize efficiencies, right? Get more customers, bigger share of wallet, because just competing on price alone is really difficult these days, right? Again, the AI and grocery report provides great insights about this. 81% of shoppers want more value from their grocery spend. So I think that we need to start thinking about that. So as you start thinking about what companies are doing, it's pretty interesting, right? Because there's what companies are doing today and what companies are looking to do in the future. Ahold Delhaize said, hey, we're a 4% margin company. We need to use AI for our back-end operations and to drive more customers to their digital apps, right? So they're looking both at their back-end operations and how they're meeting their customers where they are, and how AI can help with those areas. We're helping them with a lot of that last mile stuff and decreasing the customer wait time. So they're seeing like a 70% decrease in customer wait time by using location intelligence and understanding where the customer is to deliver better, service. But I think that there's also some interesting technologies out there that you're starting to see bubble up. Electronic shelf labels, they're pretty, starting to kind of be in the ether a little bit. I think grocery stores can use these to make quick decisions, take quick action on price and inventory fluctuations. And then some of the more forward-looking companies are starting to say, hey, how can we use smart shopping carts, right? That's being kind of viewed as an effective way to get the customer directly tied into that supply chain, process, and delivering the right information at the right time. So I think that this is all about, better decision-making capabilities, better efficiency, better customer experience, and improved margins at the end of the day.
Matt, and anything to add there, or Jan?
Yeah, so what comes to mind to me first and foremost when we think about supply chain and AI, and having kind of grown up in the stores and being close to this, is the ability for us to streamline our ordering process to make sure our shelves are always full. And this piece of technology is based on AI, but isn't necessarily new, right? AI has become a huge buzz over the last couple of years, but this technology has been around for a while. And what I'm referring to is computer automated ordering or computer generated ordering. Either way, it's the same idea. And that's using the data that we have through our ordering systems and our point of sale systems to basically understand what's coming in through the back door and what's leaving the store automatically, to understand how many do we have on the shelf, right? We know that we ordered 12 and we sold 6 today, so we need to order another case that's going to show up in 2 days to make sure we can replenish the shelf. So that ability is really important for us, because it's a huge time sink and labor investment to be able to order manually. And using this technology allows us to be really sharp. That being said, and I know this is going to come up with many of the AI things we talked about today in this call, is the system's only as good as the data, right? So it's not getting us off the hook completely, right? Humans still have to be involved in making sure all of that data is correct. So it's really important to make sure, as you look at these CAO and CGO type systems, that the folks in the stores are actually getting around and checking to make sure, the system says I have 6 on the shelf. Do I actually have 6? Actually, it's 0, right? So make sure to get that quantity right, so that does automatically order on the next load, right? And by the way, it starts to get meta a little bit when we talk about an AI-based system that's forecasting what needs are based on current promotions and seasonal changes. And then talking about how we have to go in and make sure the data is right by going physically looking on the shelf to make sure that things are correct. We can actually use other AI technology to offset that. And in some of our stores, we have actually employed robots by Simbi that we call Tally, that actually go up and down our aisles and actually scan holes to make sure, do we actually have on the shelf what the system thinks we have? And it also checks things like accuracy of tags for our items and planograms, things like that. But we're actually using AI to help inform other AI technology to make sure it's as accurate as possible. So that has been probably one of the more successful and long-running pieces of AI in retail, grocery specifically, that I've seen.
For us, as a material handling / robotic company, it's very, very clear. In principle, it wouldn't work without AI. In principle, AI is really making our robots smarter, and in our case, it's really like AI is creating artificial picker, and that's it. Something that wouldn't be possible, I would say, probably 5 years ago. It simply wouldn't be possible. And what is really happening to be more concrete is that we have as a human, we have really sophisticated multi degrees of freedom hands, plus very, very good brain and eyes, and replacing that with a simple suction cap that really requires kind of sophisticated AI. And what is the main magic happening, and why it was not possible 5 years ago, was that these neural networks, they generalize to unseen items. So in principle, grocery is to some extent diverse, but not crazy diverse. You can tell that there are categories, and I'm always giving that example that we simply have seen enough chocolate bars to know how to handle unknown, unseen chocolate bar. As simple as that. And so from this viewpoint, I would say that common understanding, common sense of physical dimensions, shape, packaging, surface, is the material porous? There's a lot of things that we as a humans, we kind of understand naturally, but for robots, that was something that simply was not possible 5 years ago. And so from our viewpoint is really, as a robotic company, we see quite a lot of connection with the physical world and how to handle these items.
Great. And kind of building off that, Jan, I mean, what Matt had said and what you said, there's obviously, when you think of AI, you think of, a robot in the aisle, like Matt was saying, or, some sophisticated algorithm that's making decisions independently. And that obviously is happening. But more often than not, the AI is working with a human, informing, the human what to do, or requiring some human interaction. So, Jan, could you just speak to that? How do you best integrate, this great new tech with, with actual people?
So, I think we are here to promote AI, but I'm going to be a little pessimistic here and tell that if anyone today will tell you that they have a fully automated AI system for it, this is important for critical decision making, probably they are lying. And I think it's perfectly fine. It's like if we automate or solve that problem 99% of those cases. So maybe let's start from the beginning. Like, what is machine learning? Today, AI is 99% machine learning. Machine learning is that machine learns from data. Now, because we have fundamentally limited amount of data, we can have a lot of data, but still fundamentally limited. That really means that it's covering some amount of edge cases. And maybe I'm going a little technical, but I think it's important that people understand that there's always going to be very long tail of edge cases, and you are not going to catch that easily in your data, mainly not in the first trial, or how to tell it. You have to probably repeat the cycle, learn more, and so on. So, and these edge cases, that's exactly the case why your Tesla cannot drive, from west to east, and so on and so on. A lot of small things that simply, again, that common sense we as a humans have, it's going to be there. And after, our goal is always to catch it somehow and remove those edge cases. But I would say that when it's critical decision making, always have by design human in the loop somewhere, or human as a fallback. That's, for example, what we do. And again, I just want to repeat, this is perfectly fine. If we automate that process to that extent that is 99%, that means our efficiencies are extreme. It's still perfectly fine. Usually what then happens is that one human in the loop is actually operating, let's say, multiple sites, or somehow it's you multiply the efficiency.
One thing I think of that's closely related to that is, the idea of having humans involved in the process is customer service automation and chatbots, right? Like, that's an area where we purposefully do not want to engineer the human out of the picture. We want to use the chatbot to be able to take care of 75, maybe 80% of the common things, but we still always need to design the process to get to a human at the end of the day, because typically customers aren't reaching out to us because they're super happy with their experience, right? They're reaching out because they've got an issue. So we need to ensure that they're taken care of. And I think that a lot of companies are shifting to a bot to handle customer service. And I know I've had some experiences where it's been pretty frustrating when you hit a wall and you can't get a hold of a real person to get your problem solved. So I think that's a critical thing to think about, that in some cases we do want to try to engineer this to be as touch-free from a human standpoint as possible, but there are some instances where we very purposefully want to keep the human involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's more about, staff kind of augmentation. I mean, more like augmentation versus replacement, right? The question is, what does your journey look like, and where do the humans fit in? Because what we're trying to do, I think, is really reduce the cognitive load on the staff. I think in recent years, what you've seen is a lot of the shifting, the decision making to humans and to staff, and making sure that they're processing information in the right way to deliver the appropriate experience. So I think from that perspective, there's ways for us to definitely use information that's already available and partner with the right companies to process it the appropriate way, right? So we process about 1 million journeys on a daily basis. And if you think about, somebody's on their way to pick up their groceries, we're providing all of those appropriate signals to staff members about, when somebody's en route, when somebody's arriving, or when they're waiting. And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, instead of providing, traditional ETAs, let's process the information that we already have. We know that you're coming to the drive-through. We know that you're coming to a specific, region at the grocery store. And so with that information, we're able to improve, those ETAs by, anywhere between seconds and minutes. And so I think that this is a way in which you can use data that's already available to you and make it real, right? Instead of make it, this bot like we're talking about that makes all the decisions for you. Where can we feed the right information to staff so that they can make the right decisions with the low cognitive load, but also know when to make those decisions and at what point? So I think that those are the ways that we can start to leverage data, AI, machine learning in order to make better decision making without replacing the complete decision making itself.
Well said. Obviously with, the popularity of, in-home shopping, inventory visibility has become increasingly challenging, right? To be able to have a true number of what's available to sell. So Matt, 78% of shoppers in our report said that a poor digital experience will reduce their loyalty. So how can savvy grocers leverage next-gen digital tools to improve the inventory visibility and in turn, the customer experience?
Yeah, I wish I knew the percentage of that 78% that actually, the poor experience was driven by not being able to get an item they ordered. I'd be willing to bet it's a large majority of that. And we know from our own data that that's the most common roadblock we see for our customers along the happy path, right? Is they order something and we're not able to provide it for them. We show that it's available on the site, but we can't get it. So I think going back to some of the things I was mentioning earlier about having those automated ordering systems and sort of perpetual inventory systems in place is a helpful way to understand what you have. And then being able to connect that to the user experience is sort of the ideal, right? Because if we're able to show the customer what we do and do not have, we're putting the decision in the hands of the customer completely, right? We're saying, hey, we're low on inventory, we may not have this, or we know we're out of this, so pick something else before you check out. That's most ideal. It's still an inconvenience because the customer has to think about it. They have to make a decision. Okay, if I can't get name brand, I'll get private label. Or if I can't get this, I'll get a bigger size. When they're in the store and something's not on the shelf, they don't necessarily have to think about that hard. It's just kind of automatic, right? So it's a little bit of a pain point online, kind of regardless. However, if you're not able to surface that inventory on the site, which there are challenges with that, by the way. If I'm showing current inventory of what I have on the shelf today and I'm placing a same day order, that might be helpful. But if I'm placing an order for next week, the count of things on the shelf right now may not be helpful. I don't know how many I'm going to have next Wednesday or next Thursday. So if you get past that, the next best thing in our view is to look at how can we put that inventory count in the hands of the person fulfilling the order, picking the order, right? So if that order comes down, we realize we don't have something on the shelf. Can we see that we may have that item somewhere else in the store or in the back room because we see that there's quantity, right? So making that data available to the person fulfilling the order can also be really helpful because then we may not actually need to inform the customer we don't have it and figure out the substitution as well. So it is a very important and very common pain point that I think we're going to be able to solve pretty well here with the connection of all of this data. And I think the final piece that AI will be able to help us with is when we do need to make a substitution or a recommendation to the customer, we can pull that in and use some of those personalization engines that we're working on for things like offers or putting the right customer or right items in baskets to actually say, based on this customer shopping history and what other customers buy, this is the thing you should recommend as a substitution, right? So that's the next thing that I think is really going to take things a step forward for the customer experience.
For me, I do not have probably such a specific insight, but in general, I think from my let's say maybe little IT viewpoint or engineering viewpoint, it's like that transition is really like first go as digital as possible, and then probably go AI. It's in principle even today you see that anything that is able to benefit from AI was probably very long time digital. because you have data, you can feed the data and you can learn. And this is, very, it's a very simple idea, but sometimes I feel that people somehow struggle to see that it's a very much, data machine. Entire machine learning is just, kind of data machine, and you have to have the backend and all these. And sometimes I feel that, that, I don't want to, again, be pessimistic or something, but I feel that some of the grocers, they probably are not even crossing the digital line enough to be able to collect such amount of data and so on and so on. So of course they can buy it, and there's other ways how to do it. But I think in some instances it's really like something that I haven't realized, when I haven't seen retail and e-commerce and all these, is that really that the extreme complexity of multiple layers. Like you have a layer of DC, a layer of your store, then potentially your customer, and it's very, for some people, multi-layer, very complex system, and I just feel that in many cases when I see the design of those systems, it's usually kind of per layer independent, and there's not enough vertical integration, and that data somehow don't flow up and down so easily. And I think that's probably the biggest thing connected to substitutions, predictions, and all these aspects.
Yeah, right on. And I think a lot of it is about integrity of that experience. One of the things that's happening these days is a lot of folks are starting their shopping experience in a digital realm, right? I think some grocers are seeing well over 50% of users using the digital channels in order to help them make decisions. And so how do you make sure that the integrity on your digital channels is, high integrity, right? It's true information and it's real time. I think, Matt talks about it so well from an operational perspective. The question is, how does everybody else build that dream? And so this is kind of where, I think it's important to, again, as I've been saying, is partner with the right folks, make sure that you have the right data, that you're delivering the right data to the customer. And I think that the good thing, I think that the silver lining here is that, 78% of shoppers are saying that poor digital experiences reduces their loyalty. But I think what we can also say is that a high amount of shoppers rely on the digital channels for their loyalty. And so if we know that, we've got a lot of opportunity there in order to take the data that's available to us, process it in the right way, surface the right information to the customer so that it's a super awesome, super seamless experience. So to me, this is very much an opportunity and very much, a question of companies and how they build that dream.
Great conversation. We still have a fair amount of time left. We're starting to get some questions from the audience, so I'm gonna pull one of them in here now. I think maybe Matt, you could take the first swing at it. The question here is about AI and in fulfillment, and either in the store or at the DC. How could AI help with that? That, I guess, that last mile fulfillment.
Sure. I think fundamentally the big question that somebody has to think about it, I guess I'm looking at this from a retailer's perspective, of how do I implement AI to help me with automated ordering or getting the product most efficiently and effectively to the shelves for the customer. When I say shelf, I mean in store or digital. Are we ready from a data standpoint? Do we have the fundamental systems in place to support that, right? Because those systems aren't going to work unless you have your inbound inventory system synced up with your point of sale system, and then also have those two systems with the correct data to begin with. One of the hardest things about launching a automated ordering system is going through and in a grocery store. It's quite a bit of work to inventory, like 40,000 items, right? But you'd have to get an accurate count of what do I have already, right? That's the key thing to do. And then you actually hook up the systems to say, okay, now for this category, my threshold is going to be a presentation stock of 6. So whenever I get less than 6 items, we're automatically ordering another case of 12. You have to go through and set up all those rules. So there's a lot of upfront work, cleanup of the data, making sure the systems are talking together. And then once you've got that set up, it's a lighter lift to actually turn the system on, right? But it's doing all of the plumbing and getting all of the actual information up front ready. That's going to be the hardest part.
Alonso or
Yeah.
Jan?
Well, yeah, I mean, to add to that, I think that there's companies, I think like a Whole Delhaize, which I mentioned earlier, they're looking at, not only that, but also even delivery routes and how that's affecting, their ability to get product. I think that, as Matt is again talking about all this stuff, I'm also looking at how that builds a foundation to be able to withstand kind of what's going on in the future. I mean, with pandemics behind us and hopefully not, but maybe some around the corner, we need to start thinking about how supply chain disruptions and even like assortment of products, how that can be turned up, turned down, and then how then you can turn that information into something that's customer facing, so that, I mean, it's real time, it's delivering that value. But a lot of it comes back to that back office operations and linking that up to those digital channels that are touching the customer.
From my viewpoint, from customers we have seen, again, the similar comment as before, but really connecting all those processes together, I just feel it's very, very difficult. And again, in technical language, you would call it kind of closed loop. Like I'm missing something. Next time I have to do it somehow, and ideally it's fully automated. Of course, we can have rules and so on, but I just feel like, again, any edge case is probably, the rules are not going to work in edge cases like Christmas or something. So it's kind of interesting to see all of these, and I would say the biggest challenge I see is probably when someone is really trying to do, let's say, 3-hour delivery. We have seen it in Europe quite often. For example, in Germany, I would say 1 hour is nearly impossible in larger cities. 3 hour is still possible, but it's kind of on the edge of, like, you really need digital and ideally somehow AI supported machine that is able to process all of these. So it's fulfillment, dispatch, order consolidation. Yes, of course, all the complications with the substitutions and so on and so on. A lot of that. Then probably you are adding the fresh at the end. Then you have to do route planning and delivering. There's simply so many things that can go wrong, that giving that promise that we can do it in 3 hours, I would say it's very brave from some viewpoint. Like my robot has to do the fulfillment itself, so the movement, but I see the complexity of that chain. It's really, like, in this case, it's a very long chain, and anything going wrong just means that the customer is not happy. So I think this is like, I would say, almost like a dream, for everyone. Like, if we get this right, it's kind of solved.
Well, it's a perfect word there for the last sentence. The last question I'm going to ask, dream, right? So what's what's the dream for AI? Where are we headed a couple of years from now? What's the AI specifically for the supply chain going to look like? So Jan, kind of as a closer, can you take a first swing at what's the future of the AI driven supply chain?
Wow, that's a very difficult question, but I think I would say my dream is that it's really like fully automated, end-to-end supply chain. In this case, for example, grocery. And what I mean by that is exactly that it's all interconnected. All the horizontal systems are connected. So customer clicking on his phone, or probably in the future actually talking to his personal assistant or home assistant, telling, maybe not even telling, actually the home assistant is telling the customer, like, oh, I feel that you would like to have something for the dinner, so maybe you have to purchase something. And and it's maybe fully conversational, like a conversation. Someone like I'm just talking to my home assistant or personal assistant. It's fully personalized, so the assistant knows me. Like, yes, I like whatever, some sugar. At the end of the day. So okay, let's do this. And I can really imagine that all of that is possible. We just need to connect all of that somehow magically together, and ultimately it's kind of interesting. But if this assistant is going to suggest me the right thing, maybe the grocer already knows what to fulfill before I approve. You know what I mean? So I think there's quite a lot of opportunities how to even utilize the situation a little. Simply having anything digital is just much more simpler to handle. It's like it's like suddenly we can hold it and we can steer it the way we want. So I think yeah, I'm not sure if that is too futuristic, but let's see, maybe in 2-3 years we are there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's exactly where I was going, by the way, is it's like instead of demand forecasting, it's like demand suggestion, but at a customer level. Like I want to log on and my cart's already filled up with stuff that the retailer is thinking that the customer wants based on the last time they bought milk and how frequently they consume milk, etc. I don't want to think about it. Just fill my cart for me.
yeah, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon there. It's about hyper personalized experiences, but I think that when we're thinking about like how that grocery experience is going to look like in the future, I also think that it's worth thinking about what our individual, lives are going to look like. And I think that there's a tendency to say, how can I use data in order to make better decisions, better diets, what aligns with me and my body? And then how can I take that data and make a lower cognitive load experience in the grocery store, right? What if I walk into that grocery store and instead of looking at that shelf and saying, what do I pick? Because I'm always going to pick the chips and the candy and the soda, right? Maybe it's giving me the cues to make the right decisions that then feed into what Matt and Jan are talking about. That then those kinds of preferences, that kind of data is leveraged in order to make more predictive decisions at the customer level, which are then fed to the grocers, which then allow them to make also better decisions to respond to consumer demand. But I think that the hyper personalized experiences are going to be something that you're going to continue to hear about as just AI in our lives unfold. And I think it's going to make big impacts in the grocery space for sure.
All right, great. That's a great place to end our conversation. I want to thank all three of you for joining us today. This actually brings our event to a close for the day. This is our third and final session. So I want to thank everyone for listening in, all the panelists of all three sessions. Tomorrow we'll be back at it at noon Eastern time for an in-depth conversation on AI and retail media, followed by a roundtable on AI-powered pricing. So until then, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. But until then, have a great day.
Thank you very much. A nice one.
Thank you.